Commemorating 70 years, this is News 13 at 6.
President Joe Biden flies over the mountains in Marine One, surveying the devastation from Helene. His afternoon flight included a low pass over Asheville, which continues to reel from no power and no water.
And the president announced this afternoon that 1,000 Army troops will be sent to the state to reinforce the North Carolina National Guard. The soldiers will help get supplies into hard-to-reach areas and assist in search and rescue efforts. After that announcement, he flew over the devastation, including Biltmore Village, Lake Lure, and other parts of western North Carolina. Helene is now the deadliest hurricane to hit the mainland U.S. since Katrina. That's according to statistics from the National Hurricane Center. 177 people are dead throughout the storm's path. Asheville's mayor was with the president on today's flight. We will hear from her about the tour tonight at 10 and 11. Asheville and Buncombe County leaders updated relief and recovery efforts this afternoon. Sheriff Quentin Miller says there are now 61 confirmed deaths in Buncombe County. We will have an update on search and rescue efforts in just a moment. The assistant city manager also gave an update on efforts to restore the water system. He says DOT crews are at work right now rebuilding roads to the Bee Tree treatment plant. Roads still need to be rebuilt to get to the North Fork treatment plant. Water officials say the timeline on repairs and the water clearing up to treat is hard to estimate.
I can't give an estimate on the rate at which the turbidity of that reservoir water will decrease enough that it can be treated. Same thing with the transmission lines that are necessary from that plant. That's our number one priority. But again, we were just being able to access those transmission lines. And again, all that's contingent upon the distribution system being repaired.
County leaders also updated trash collection. Waste Pro will begin regular Thursday pickups tomorrow, only on roads that are safe. Waste Pro will also station trucks at Ingalls locations, 3 of them along Hendersonville Road and Fletcher tomorrow, for people to drop off trash bags. Helicopters are in the air over eastern Buncombe County, bringing supplies and doing search and rescue missions. News 13's Kimberly King shows us those efforts based in Swannanoa.
From the ground, we watched as pilots took off with supplies, food and water to bring to people across Swannanoa in remote parts of a decimated community. A total of 3 copters in from Nashville, Tennessee, with 7 pilots from a private company, all volunteers. Adam Smith's in charge doing dispatch.
At this point, we've moved 3 different search and rescue teams into 4 or 5 different locations on the ground for them to effect a search and rescue.
Smith lives near Black Mountain, compelled to act.
When everything happened on Friday morning, I couldn't get in touch with my daughter or her mom. And so I was able to get a contact out to her brother-in-law, and he told me how bad it was.
He knows the company that owns the copters and got them here. Teams also loading supplies delivered to storm victims in Swannanoa with nothing.
The terrain is very difficult right now.
Charlie Lubowicki is communications officer for the Federal Urban Search and Rescue Teams.
Right now in Swannanoa, the North Carolina Task Force 2 is operating there with a 90-person team, as well as Nebraska. They have a contingent there as well. From the federal system, and also they're using dogs at this time.
For 2 days, we've watched aircraft focus on the missing here. Officials have not released an exact number, but this whiteboard at a local church tells the story of those missing and the names of those not recovered. Additional private helicopters launching from that church, First Baptist parking lot yesterday. Melody Dowdy, the pastor's wife, said her congregation is uniting.
The body of Christ is what it is, and it's people mobilizing themselves until government assistance can get here.
Her husband, Pastor Jeff Dowdy, knows President Biden's scheduled to fly over the area with a message.
President Biden, we need your help. This community is really hurting. There are so many people that are in desperate need, and you have the power in this country to rally us together.
And everybody that's here knows the severity of the situation.
Adam, you're aware of people who have not made it in the Swannanoa area, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am. There's still a lot of missing people. And the fact of the matter is at this point, the people that are still missing, all we can do is pray and just keep working to make certain that we have the ability to find them.
Reporting from Swannanoa, Kimberly King, News 13.
Helicopters continue to dot the sky over Rutherford County as rescue efforts continue there. On the other side of the county airport, another mission is underway. News 13's Jennifer Emmert explains how for days truckloads of supplies have been making it into hard-hit neighborhoods ahead of government assistance.
It's been nonstop flights into the Rutherford County airport since Monday, bringing in much-needed supplies in an all-volunteer effort.
Item by item.
That's heavy. Very heavy.
Passing through a line of volunteers on their way to Rutherford County residents who lost the contents of their refrigerators and more. It's a supply effort that begins a few thousand feet up and 80 miles away in Statesville, destined for the hardest-hit communities in western North Carolina. Arrow Bridge, a nonprofit, organizes the donations and the pilots, all volunteers, donating planes and fuel and their time to get needed supplies on the ground into communities that need it sooner versus later.
We are flying in supplies to crisis centers, shelters. We're also working with the County Emergency Operations Center at Rutherford County as well to make sure that not only we get the supplies into Rutherford County, we're 6 miles from Lake Lure here, but also to the people in need at these shelters and the crisis centers.
Since Monday, there have been more than 160 flights. So far, 18 box trucks and 12 pickup trucks have sent items to 6 different distribution points in Rutherford County, putting it into the hands of those hurting for the basics to keep going in the wake of the destruction left behind.
Arrow Bridge expected the effort to last at least through Friday or until supplies are no longer needed. In Rutherford County, Jennifer Emmert, News 13.
91,000 customers remain without power in Buncombe County, but Duke Energy is trying to restore power to some customers in Swannanoa. They just delivered a mobile substation to temporarily replace the flooded New Salem Road substation. Now, Duke spokesperson tells us that the mobile substation will re-energize the grid for about 5,000 customers. They had to wait on the DOT to check the roads and bridges before they could haul the 100,000 pounds of equipment to get to that site. It will be there for 3 to 4 months as crews rebuild the damaged equipment. A Duke spokesperson tells us they are working as fast as possible, but safety is the first priority.
We're doing it as efficiently as we can, but at the same time, I mean, we've got crews that are working around the clock. They're not stopping and saying, you know, let's do this as cheaply as possible. It's as safely as possible.
Norton says that they are hoping to have this temporary substation energized by Friday.
Henderson County continuing to deal with the aftermath. A spokesperson for the county tells us the latest issue is that they had a cell phone tower go down. This has caused them to lose the little bit of service they had in the county. In the meantime, there are resource hubs opening at 9 o'clock every morning for water distribution and other supplies. Locations include Etowah Elementary, East and North Henderson High, and Rugby Middle, along with Fletcher and Mills River Town Halls, where we caught up with some residents this morning.
There is no power and there's no water at the house, and everything around here is just very bad.
We're lucky. All we lost was power and the tree fell in our house.
As frustrating as it can be, the county is asking everyone to remain patient. Remember, the curfew is in effect from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The county will remain in a state of emergency as it continues to recover.
Students have now had days without homework assignments and time in the classroom because of the hurricane.
And that's expected to continue for the near future. News 13's Ed DiOrio spoke with Asheville and Buncombe County school leaders about what the future looks like for families.
In a matter of days, these buildings have gone from centers of learning to centers of shelter. School officials throughout Buncombe County and all of western North Carolina are having to adapt to get these buildings back as quick as possible. And in that process, they have to be flexible with their families and staff.
There's a lot of questions for parents when it comes to their kids and their education.
I started to think about their education first, and really just if I have enough food and water for them.
The good news is that the schools survived Helene.
Our 45 school buildings have sustained minimal damage.
We thankfully had minimal damage to our buildings.
The bad is that there's no timetable for when they go from shelter stations back to classrooms.
Biggest issue is water.
None of our buildings have water, and that is the most crucial piece to bringing students back into our buildings.
Many buildings are also without power. The schools won't open until both of those utilities return. And even if the space could bring purpose to families right now, they're already occupied.
We are housing one of the rescue teams and all of their staff. So they're using this as a hub for their cons as well as a place to sleep.
Jackson and Furman are encouraging their families to use the resources around them to help with the loss of learning.
One great way to keep our students learning, even when we don't have access to the internet or our great teachers, is to simply read.
I've already had several teachers email me some really creative ideas, so I'm going to meet with my leadership team and principals, and we want to do whatever we can to engage and support our students.
They're also encouraging families to do what's best for them.
This critical crisis situation, if what's best for their family is to go somewhere where they can get food and water and send their kid to school, we definitely want them to know that that's okay to do that.
If we did have a family who left and came back, we would immediately re-enroll them and get them right to work.
We will continue to touch base with Buncombe County, Asheville City School officials, as well as others throughout Western North Carolina for updates as to when these buildings will be back and getting kids in the classroom. In Asheville, Ed Diorio, News 13.
So many heartbreaking stories in the wake of Helene's destruction.
For one family in the River Arts District, the historic storm took away a 40-year way of life. Webb Wright has their story.
We've lost everything that my dad's worked 40 years for.
A lifetime of work.
We never thought that Thursday when we locked the doors would be the last time you'd ever walk in that black door.
Simply washed away.
Me and my brother both have worked for my dad since we've graduated high school, and this is the only thing we know. Is to work on people's cars and help so many families out here.
Now the cleanup begins.
Everything was flipped upside down, toolboxes and digging in mud to find just the littlest piece of tool, one of our sockets.
A frustrating process trying to salvage a life and share the same space with first responders trying to keep people safe.
We were asked to leave the premises. If we didn't, we would be stuck in for hours. However, my dad did say that he was not leaving our property. This is his livelihood that has been for 40 years. They told him to get out, so we did leave. They have been better today about letting people in. They are making you tell exactly what location you're going to. I even had to give a description of what my dad was driving into his shop today to even be able to get in today.
A better day, but an uncertain future.
That is how we have fed our kids for 30 years. I mean, that's the only thing that my kids have ever known. My son come home from the hospital to that shop. That's the only job my husband's ever had. Honestly, I don't think he knows what to do without that shop. I don't think none of them do.
I do still have my whole family. We do still have life, and there's several out here that doesn't. Luckily, it's just our livelihood that's gone and not our family.
First responders from Louisiana are comparing the damage done by this storm in Mitchell County to Hurricane Katrina.
Mitchell County is largely in the dark. Communities are still physically cut off from the rest of the county, and essentially no one is connected to water, power, or cell.
And for the first time today, News 13's Justin Berger gets an assessment from those in charge.
Basically, our county has been cut off since this storm system came through on Friday.
Alan Cook is the Mitchell County manager.
We've had 500-year historic flooding in Mitchell County.
Multiple fatalities, landslides, erosions, mass power outages, water sewer systems completely wiped out, and next to no cell service.
Accessibility has been our main holdback at this point.
Chad Robertson is one of 2 incident commanders in from Louisiana.
There's at least 6 or 7 communities, areas that you got the washouts, trees down initially in those communities that made it hard to get rescuers into those areas.
Action is being taken from the air, including rescues.
They're having to airdrop poles into areas to get the poles in the ground, hand digging the holes.
Cook is estimating the timeline for power and water to be months for most, weeks for some. There is no timeline for cell to get back up. He says the county is in need of Starlink, oxygen, generators, and one more thing.
I'm hanging in there. Prayers needed.
Reporting in Mitchell County, Justin Berger, News 13.
And the recovery is ongoing in Haywood County.
Leaders say most of the fiber optic network is restored Efforts are underway to reestablish wireless infrastructure. Reliable cell service has been challenging, along with the scale and scope of the storm, causing damage countywide. Search and rescue operations continue with the help of an incident resource hub with emergency workers from all across the state and beyond. 4 deaths are confirmed in Haywood County. Sadly, more are anticipated.
We want it to be as low as possible, and what we're hoping for is that every time that we go to a new address, those people are okay, and that we can get them medicine or food or whatever it is that we can help them with.
And Haywood County schools will be closed for both staff and students for the remainder of the week. A 48-hour notice will be given to prior reopening. There are multiple donation and supply locations around the county, and we will list those with this story at WLOS.com.
A local church in Cashers is coming together to help its community.
News 13's Megan Doyle joins us from Jackson County with the efforts there.
Here at Cashers Baptist Church in Jackson County, North Carolina, they've been collecting food, water, and supplies for families in need since Monday. They are also serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The power is slowly being restored to some areas of Cashers, and loved ones are finally able to get in touch with their families.
We had a lot of people calling the church. Do you know my family? We don't know what's going on. Sorry, but those were some of the hardest situations, but we got people out and we tended to find, everybody's okay.
Pastor Tomlin also said that if anyone needs help or supplies in Jackson County, to reach out to the Cashers Fire Department, who will relay the message to the church. In Jackson County, I'm Meg Doyle.